Earlier this week, I was having a conversation with Daniel, who was having a very difficult day. He was particularly fussy and angry and crying, and nothing was appeasing him. And he looked at me and he goes, "It's just not my day." And I said, "Well, it's not. Why is it not your day, sweetie?" And he goes, "I don't want to have to go to therapy." He was very angry about having to go to occupational therapy, which he does weekly, because he needs to get skills, like how to make sure that your shirt is facing the correct direction when getting dressed, all sorts of exciting things like that. And he told the therapist when we got there and he finally settled down that he hates that he has autism and he doesn't like that he's got ADHD and life is just not going his way. And we had a conversation with the therapist, which lasted a few minutes, and then he was walked back into the therapy room about what does it mean? And did anybody make fun of him? And why is he so negative about it today, of all days? What made tonight different from all other nights? And he said nobody, really made fun of him, but none of the other kids in his class need to go to occupational therapy, or so he thinks. He doesn't know for sure. He couldn't be definitive. But he realized that there are moments when he is different. And it's not always, I think, a comfortable feeling to feel different. And one of the books that he and I read talks about what is it like to be different. And what you see in the book is a brain that goes around and describes all the excitement and it feels, and how sometimes this brain just wants to pop out of the body, and how wonderful life is until somebody all of a sudden decided this is good, this is bad, this is what good behavior looks like, this is what bad behavior looks like, this is that label, and this is and you don't want to have that label. But the brain realizes when it finds the right body and the right little girl that, well, labels don't really matter that much, because in the end, you are who you are, and everybody has a gift. Everybody brings something to the table. And this book is written by a doctor who does ADHD research, and it was written, he himself has ADHD, his children have it, and he wrote it for his children as well. And I came across it when I was reading some different blogs on life with kids who have special needs. But it got me thinking also. We're in Parshat Mishpatim. In this Parsha, it's very much about what's things and what they're labeled. If you do this, then this happens. And you're labeled as, well, deserving of a punishment. And if you do that, then this thing happens, and it's considered not good. And at the end of the day, when you sit there and you go through all of these if-then casuistic statements, kind of makes you think. There must have been, well, a lot of goring oxes, people fighting, people obviously not feeling good, and just tremendous conflict, chaos all over the place. But that's not really how life is even today. There's not all of that conflict and chaos everywhere, but there are times when people do feel not great. And sometimes some of those not good feelings don't always stay inside of us. They get put out and pushed on to other people. When Maimonides was asked in the Middle Ages, what is it that the most important lesson in the entire Bible? Not only did he come up with it, but many other people at that time were coming up with value statements, and this is what it is that we believe. Maimonides' 13 principles came out of that conversation. Those 13 principles, in case you're curious, were formed into a song, Yigdal, which you can find in the back of your prayer book. But beyond Maimonides doing that, he came up with these principles. We see Rabbi Akiva kind of beat him to the punch when he said, love your neighbor as yourself, everything else is essentially commentary. We also see that in many regards, Hillel said, even when other people aren't acting like mensches or good people, in your neighborhood still go about the task of being a mensch. The rabbis, when you start to pull apart and tease out their big teachings, it's not that they were so focused on the casuistic, if you do this, then that, and who do we have to hold up in regards to damages, and following the laws of kashrut to this high standard. Rather, when we boil it down, we see that it's ultimately about making sure that everybody feels loved, that you're loving your neighbor, that you're being kind to your neighbor. The conversation in Mishpatim about how to follow rules is ultimately, how can justice exist within a society so that everybody feels seen, not one group necessarily feels put upon, or that they have to behave in such a way as to accommodate a different group, a group in power. Ultimately, at the end of the day, when we think about what is it the Mishpatim is really attempting to articulate, or the Torah, or the Bible in general, I think it is, as Rabbi Akiva described, reminding us to treat our neighbors with loving kindness. After all, I think if everybody were to contemplate deeply and think about it, there are moments when they also feel lonely, isolated, different, and that life isn't fair because they have to do X, Y, Z to make sure that they're able to live a successful life. Not everybody has a high IQ or lots of money like Elon Musk, but a lot of people have to struggle and work hard to achieve their goals. Not everybody is able to look as gorgeous as, I don't know, pick a supermodel, but we all have an inherent sense of beauty inside of us. Every single one of us has some strength and some gift that they bring to the table. And by having rules, we're able to hopefully construct a society that doesn't diminish the value of another person at the expense of somebody, but ultimately, again, elevates the good that everybody brings to the table. So that while there are moments and times that my son may not enjoy or like the fact that he has autism and ADHD in general, hopefully by having all of the supports that he has in place now, he can, when he grows up, feel more adjusted and accepted by society. Not them, but he can also, most importantly, accept himself. I think his biggest reason why he was having a temper tantrum was, he did not want to have to go. He didn't want to have to do all of that hard work. It's not fair for him in his mind's eye that David just is able to get dressed in, I don't know, a minute, his older brother, and meanwhile it will take him 5 or 6 minutes to do a similar task. But at the end of the day, everybody offers something. Maybe the labels can kind of help put people in the right places so that they can get the help that they need, which I think is the purpose of the label. And maybe all the rules or the if-then statements are to remind us of how to be with one another. But the essence, I think, is to live a life that reminds all of us that we're created in the image of God, and to live that out to our highest value so that we can truly love our neighbor as we love ourselves. Shabbat Shalom.